I just want to say once again, thank you everyone for showing up, and we have really great presentation for you today. The topic is Make Your Mark, Learning to Advocate for Meaningful Change. So just to give you a little bit of background on what the Junior League of Columbus is, if you're not familiar, the Junior League of Columbus is an organization of women committed to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving communities through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. So the Junior League was founded in New York City in 1909 by Mary Harriman. Today we have over 295 leagues representing 150,000 women across the US, Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdoms. The Columbus Junior League was founded in 1923 on February 1st, and on February 1st, 2023, we'll be celebrating our league centennial. We currently have over 410 active and sustaining members of diverse backgrounds. So some of our quick impact and things that we do currently in the community is the Calton House Museum and Garden. It was built in 1852, and it served at the stop of the Underground Railroad and was turned into a 19th century museum in 1979. It's a really great place to visit. We have a great sort of patio garden area. I recommend, if you have some time this summer, to check it out. We do our Adopt a Backpack for Children project, and we started that in 1999. And what it does is it helps children with economically challenged children get backpacks filled with school supplies. And I saw today that I think we were able to provide about 1,400 backpacks. So we'll be dispersing those in the next couple of weeks to various community organizations. And then we have our quick impact opportunities, providing countless hours of volunteering in our community through preferred partners. And just to name a few, like a couple of our preferred partners are the Star House, and the YMCA, and things of that nature. So our signature project is Bridging the Gap, and our goal is to guide, advocate, and provide for youth who are transitioning from foster care to independent living, and just provide them with everyday essentials. And if you're interested in joining the league or even learning more, the applications are due by June 14th. And the new league year will begin July 1st of 2021. And don't hesitate to reach out to our recruitment team or even visit our website to learn a little bit more information about who we are and what we do. So the main event is our Fostering Change by Bridging the Gap, Make Your Mark. And our whole Fostering Change initiative came from us. We decided to have this signature project, and throughout this whole entire year we were just researching and sort of connecting with advocates in this space, and we found out about the Ombudsman's office that is currently being voted on and voted on in the US Senate, not the US Senate, excuse me, the Ohio Senate. So we thought it'd be a really great opportunity to partner with some organizations like the Youth Advisory Board and the Children's Defense Fund. And you will hear from 2 individuals today from each of those organizations, and just sort of help spread the word about the importance of this office and the funding that it needs. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to our guest speakers, Kim Eckhart and Jay Turner.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, or I guess good evening, everyone. So my name's Kim Eckhart. Like Shauna said, I work for the Children's Defense Fund of Ohio. And I was saying earlier, you know, we've been around for 40 years, which we're like babies compared to the Junior League. But yeah, we grew out of the civil rights movement. It's a national organization. Our main office is in DC, but the Ohio office was established 40 years ago. And our mission is really to advocate for whole child well-being. So, when we think about education, protecting children from abuse and neglect, targeting resources for health and well-being, nutrition. So, obviously, we have a lot of different issues that we advocate for across the state of Ohio. But this particular issue, we're going to talk about today around the Youth Ombudsman Office has just really captured our heart. It hits on so many of the key areas that are so important to us as far as, elevating youth voice and, empowering youth to advocate and kind of amplifying their voice. So I'm going to hand it over to Jay to introduce herself, and just a great example of a young person in the community who's doing amazing things.
Oh, thank you, Kim. And thank you for this, powerful opportunity to help present, make your mark, and just share what we're doing. I'm Jay. I'm representing Action Ohio. I'm a mother, student, youth advocate, mentor, speaker, but I'm also the founder and executive director of Ellison. My passion is everything foster care. As someone with lived experience in foster care, and who has also worked as a professional within the system, my goal has always been to just empower our youth and young adults to just live a life of just healing and restoration and just creating a space for them to thrive even within their circumstances. So I appreciate this opportunity.
So hopefully you can see my screen. We represent three different organizations that this is kind of our coalition. The Youth Advisory Board, that is basically current and former foster youth ages 14 to 24 who have banded together to develop policy priorities and to really kind of create a coordinated effort towards advocacy for young people in foster care. And then Action Ohio is really people who have kind of are alums of foster care. So, any age, but they're just really invested in continuing to, look out for their brothers and sisters of care is, kind of the way that the group talks about it. So today, I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to talk to you guys about a couple different things. We want to talk about what does it look like to make a difference at a systems level? And obviously you guys are really invested in the community doing things, volunteering. And so we want to talk about systems level change and, how does policy change? What is the mechanism? How does that work? And we want to kind of go over a little bit more in depth with the legislative process and then how your voice can kind of become a part of that process. Then we'll get into a little bit more about specifically the advocacy campaign that we've been working on over the last couple of months, honestly, the last couple of years, but really amplifying it and putting a lot more energy into it in the last couple of months during the budget process. And then finally, we'll give you some opportunities to get involved and see if, if there's something that you want to engage with, we'll kind of give you some practical tools to help with that. So with that, I want to talk a little bit, just kind of big picture buckets as far as making a difference. So, you obviously are civically engaged just by the very fact that you're here tonight. But there's different levels of impact that we can make. And I think the most obvious and the thing that we're kind of tend to be attracted to most regularly is direct service. This is like the ideas of, making backpacks for kids and other kinds of meeting people where they are within the system that currently exists. And that is so important and so crucial. But going beyond that and getting into some other levels is this idea of systems change. And that's really kind of trying to get at the root cause of, why do some kids need help getting a backpack? What is it about the way the system is set up that makes it necessary for us to provide backpacks for some children? And then framework change, I really love this concept because what this is really getting into is it's not just changing specific policies, but it's kind of changing the way that as a culture we view certain issues. So it's influencing the mindsets that go into why the systems are set up the way they are. What do we believe about the world to be true that influences us to create the policies that we create? And so I wanted to give Jay, turn it back over to Jay, because I feel like her work in the community kind of embodies all of these different spheres of making an impact, and especially just giving her a chance to talk a little bit more about her organization.
Thank you, Kim. So yes, Ellison is an organization, we're a 501c3 private foundation that advocates and serves our foster care community. How we provide direct services is through our mission duffel bags, as Kim was, saying, filling backpacks, but this is more so mission bags. So we know that children enter foster care every day, and we know that their belongings is inside of a trash bag. So what we created, just like every other organization, we created duffel bags, but they're mission bags. So it's a statement. I'm on a mission to not let my circumstances define who I am, but to strive to be the best me that I can be. And that's with every mission bag we give. Another direct services is our Project Passion, which helps our current youth or former youth who are in college and just looking to go into the workforce. We provide that attire for them, workforce attire. So that's an example of a goods and service. An example of good service, boom, 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 boom. System change, more like policy, just advocating. So, having these meetings with state representatives and, the governor's office, seeing how we can use and amplify our youth voice. What's going on in the system that you want to see change? What outcomes can we help? How can we better the outcomes of current and former foster youth? So yeah, that's a little bit about Ellie and, how we kind of connect in the different levels of change, system change. So. Oh, I'll pass it.
Okay, thank you. So framework change. I feel like framework change is something that kind of is foundational to systems change. It's until we can kind of change some of the mindsets, it's really hard to change policies. And so the framework changing, I'm just going to give the example of what I see as sort of the framework change that is necessary for the youth ombuds advocacy that we've been doing. So, I think one way that we need to change the narrative is, sometimes people think, oh, youth in foster care, they tend to misbehave and they just get the treatment they deserve. These are troubled youth. This concept of they're somehow to blame for their circumstances. But the real narrative, the framework shift that has to happen is that, no youth, no matter their circumstances, deserves harsh, punitive, or abusive treatment. And that once we can understand that, I think we can begin to make progress. They deserve to be protected and not blamed for their situation. Another piece of this is that, young people don't know what's best for them. They're just kids. They just, but what we're saying is that no, youth really should be empowered to be able to have their voice listened to. And that their voice, it can be, that voice itself can be a powerful agent for change. And then our role as allies is, to kind of amplify their voice. We can really speak, we have these positions in society that allow us to have a voice in a more influence, but we can then amplify their voice in the halls of power to create change. And then, another piece of this is, there's, this is just too huge of a problem. There's no easy solutions to this. It's just the way it is. And, the shift in the narrative in this sense is that there really are better mechanisms that we can create that will allow, people to report abuse in a way that does create lasting change. So shifting all of these, and I think a big part of what you can do in your roles is to just help people to understand these framework shifts. And we'll get into a little bit more about kind of the policy level changes that need to happen and how that works logistically and technically. But just know that to the extent that you can listen to youth and really help to shift the narrative around how they're treated, they don't deserve, harsh punishments, those kinds of, basically just kind of helping to distribute that narrative in your community, I think can really go a long way. And then in terms of like systems change, this is something that it really takes a lot of coordinated effort to kind of start to really narrow down your focus and think about what is the policy that we really want to have changed. If you think about like the laws that are kind of building the structures that we live in, what specifically can we change? And so identifying that policy priority can take a lot of time. But I think what, and Jay has some really good thoughts about this, as far as like getting connected to organizations that have kind of developed this, have developed platforms So, Children's Defense Fund is one, Action Ohio is one, and we've kind of developed this coalition because we see, being able to kind of bring together different voices from different areas really can kind of like create more momentum. But, are there organizations that are kind of already developing their platforms? And there's a lot out there that, have done this work of identifying the policy priority. And we'll talk about our policy in a few minutes too. But yeah, doing the work of developing that coalition, identifying your stakeholders, because there may be other players in, in the community that may not want to see the same change, but they have a stake in it. So you have to understand, kind of where different people are coming from. So doing all of that kind of base level work to get started. And, then that's when you kind of go and you start to really find your legislative champion. So, and it's helpful to have really helpful resources that you can hand over to your legislators, but just reach out to them and say, would you be willing to meet with us? We have, here's a one-page document that describes the issue that we want to see changed. So once you can find your champion, you can reach out either to your representatives or to your senators, either, on either kind of side. You can start on either side and, do some research, follow them on Facebook, follow them in their, on their social media accounts, get to know, like, what are they interested in? Is there a way that you can make a connection with them? For example, we reached out to a senator who has a background in foster care. He actually, he was adopted out of foster care as a child, and he and his sister both had that experience. So, finding out background information can really help you to find a champion. And then really the champion's role then is to help you to draft your amendment. Or it can be, you could have a bill, like you could have your own standalone bill, or if you know of a bill that's kind of already moving and getting some support, you could draft an amendment to that bill. And that champion really will work with the Legislative Service Commission to develop that amendment and that piece of legislation to get added to the bill. And then it's just a matter of, tracking the progress along the legislative journey. And I put a little infographic there to show you kind of like what all is entailed. It's pretty detailed, but you can kind of see like the bill can be proposed in either the House or the Senate. It doesn't matter. In some cases, you could even have, if you could find a senator and a representative, you could have like a companion bill. So there's one in each, and then they can kind of follow the track and gain momentum on both sides. And then within that, so there will be hearings, and those hearings will give you an opportunity to go on record and give your testimony. So you contact the committee and you say, we want to testify about this bill. And you can testify either as a proponent, or you can also, if there's a bill out there that that you don't want to see happen, you can also testify as an opponent. So those hearings are really a special opportunity to go on record, to stand before the legislature. You prepare your written testimony in advance, so they have your remarks, and that'll all be published online. And you'll be recognized in this website that kind of tracks all this stuff. So yeah, as it moves through, you'll have other opportunities to go to hearings because it'll go through the Senate side and then the House side, or vice versa. And ultimately, the floor debate is when they move through subcommittees and then they go to the general committee, like the general floor, it's called. And ultimately, yeah, the governor gets to sign off or not. So that's kind of the overall process. And every point along this way, so from 1 to 8 is an opportunity for grassroots advocacy. So finding the legislative champion, if no one's listening to you and you're not able to find that champion, then that's where the grassroots advocacy comes in. If you're getting all the way to the end, but you haven't gotten the governor on board yet, that's where the grassroots advocacy really can be a big part of it. So what does grassroots advocacy look like? And we kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. It's really about amplifying the voice of those who are most impacted. So it's great for me to go before a legislator and to say, this is what I'm hearing and it's so important. But really telling the stories, and even ideally getting someone who's had that experience to tell their story in their own words, can have so much impact. So that's really what we've been doing throughout the last several weeks, is getting into the meeting with the legislator and inviting some young people to tell their story. And it's very compelling. So really, I just want to say, like, identify yourself as an ally and to really focus on that amplifying piece. But then make sure you talk about this idea of including your own name and title. Talk about your own standing in the community, because that can really, you can go through doors that other people might not be able to go through because of your standing in the community. So talk about yourself as an ally, but also don't be afraid of like putting yourself out there as who you are with all of your own connections. Real basically, I kind of put a hierarchy around how your communication would work. Like, it's great to use a template, and a lot of people put templates out there that you can use. It's even better to use your own words. If you're going to send a letter or email, put some, personalize it. And I've heard this, I've never actually done this, but I've heard that putting something in your own handwriting can really make an impact. And then the last thing is the testimony. And, Shauna accompanied us and Veronica accompanied us to the, these are members of the Junior League with you guys. And they did an awesome job of, taking it to that next level where it's like, you're on record, you're in front of a bunch of people. And in this case, it was even more accentuated because we were in line with like 30 other people going before us. So that, if you can find an opportunity to go on record and testify, I think that can really, really be a powerful piece to all of this. Engaging the press. We've heard so many times where people won't pay attention to an issue until it's in the paper. So if you can get, if you read the paper and you see an article that's somebody's written, find out who the author is and, send them an email and say, I have a story that you might like to hear. You can always try to get a letter to the editor in, or, some sort of an op-ed piece. That's often a really good tool to get the attention, broader kind of attention. And then, thinking about just more tips and tricks, if you're posting on social media using pictures and graphics, and especially stories, use your own sphere of influence, because each of you has, a role in the community. Of just even talking with, some of the people that I've talked to so far from the Junior League. I mean, you guys are powerhouses, and you're and respected. So thinking about how, you can use that influence that you have. Targeting your own legislators. If you don't know who your legislator is, it's really easy to find that out. But they all, they put their constituents above, more general advocates. So being able to target them is especially good. And just other, tips about, like, if you can find somebody's actual email address as opposed to just like a general email address, that can really help. And I'm going to provide you with some of the next steps. I'm going to give you some email addresses that you can use that are actual people that will respond to you. And then, lastly, coordinating with others. So if you want to do something in person, create an event like a day of action where you actually go down to the State House, get a speaker to talk. Or, if you want to do something a little bit easier to do virtually, like a Twitter storm, where it's like, okay, at this time of, the evening, we're all going to go on Twitter and this is the hashtag we're going to use. So those kinds of things can really help to bring more attention to an issue. So those are my tips and tricks. I know, I'm sure a lot of you guys have dabbled in this or, have really committed yourself to this. So I'm probably speaking to the choir a little bit, but I want to give Jay an opportunity to talk about the campaign that we've been working on most recently and just why it's so important. So let me pause there.
That was awesome. So I'm going to talk about a youth ombudsman's office and what it looks like, what we're expecting, what we're asking. So creating a youth ombudsman's office and Bill of Rights will protect our children and teens by empowering them to self-report any abuse or any violation of their rights, and they'll have an independent investigation. In situations when the system is broken. A few pointers that you'll see on your screen. And why we're asking is because this will protect and ensure basic needs are met while in care. We want to make sure our youth have a voice of their own, and seeing like how can we better serve them while they are in care. This youth ombudsman's office will also give our youth a voice without fear of retribution. A lot of the times, seeing how a youth ombudsman's office can be connected with other agencies who serve both the foster parents and any caregiver. So we want to make sure that it is separate and it is independent, so that they're not being punished for reporting any wrong action against them. It'll also reduce the risk of runaways. And that's very important because a lot of the times when our youth run away, they can end up sex trafficked or, worse. So we want to make sure, like, creating this youth ombudsman's office, their voices are safe. And, the responses are in a timely manner. It's quick. It's not taking weeks. As someone who worked in professional settings, I've seen things take weeks. So this will also add capacity to overextended caseworkers. We know the need for caseworkers. We know the need for foster parents. So being able to have this and being, it being youth-centered, it'll give that, it'll kind of take that load off of, caseworkers to take on both foster parent, reports or kinship reports and our youth reports. So, yeah. Key components of a healthy and youth-centered ombudsman's office. Again, we want this to be independent so that it'll avoid conflict of interest. Again, like, I wouldn't want, my abuser to have the same attorney as me. There's no way my attorney can represent me and my abuser. So that's why we want this to be independent. We want this to be dedicated to our youth, of course, to avoid conflicts, to separate from any office serving foster caregivers and professionals, again, to just avoid conflict of interest. Really, that's the biggest thing. We want this to be designed by current and former foster youth, because I know with me, I feel like we can't create something without those with lived experiences or who is experiencing it. It just doesn't make sense to disregard their voices, our voices. I know a lot of the times adults feel like they know what we need or what's best for us, but it's like, we know if this doesn't happen, then this will happen because we're experiencing it. It's our story, it's our testimony, it's what's going on. So it's very important that this is designed by current and former foster youth. And it's a way to show that our voices are being amplified when people are giving us a seat at the table, and extending, our stories and saying, what, this is real.
Okay, so we've made quite a bit of progress on, and like you said, we've been advocating for the Ombuds office probably since 2018. And so we're really excited the fact that the governor's office did commit $1 million for this initiative, and to create a foster youth bill of rights. So what we have been testifying about, and what Shauna and others have really kind of helped us to kind of put some real framework around, is this idea that we want it to be independent. And Jay did a good job talking about this. So right now, the way it's set up is it's going to be within the JFS, Job and Family Services Program Operations budget. So you can kind of imagine, like, the director of JFS has the opportunity to fund this or not, depending on if what their priorities are. It's kind of all at their discretion. And so what we've learned as we've been researching this idea of an ombudsman office is that in order for them to really be able to hold people accountable, to speak out against abuse and injustices without feeling like their funding is at risk all the time. So in order for them to really be effective and autonomous, it can't be within that program operations. That you can't have your funding. It's like if your job was to kind of report on whether your boss was doing a good job. It's just not a good setup. So we crafted a Senate amendment in House Bill 110, and we've been meeting with legislators basically just to say, we don't want that to be part of their program operations budget. Can we put that separate so that it can really fully be independent and autonomous? And everyone keeps asking us, well, if it's not there, then where is it? And so we also followed up with another piece of legislation, which would create a commission. The people that are kind of on that commission would then be kind of the driving where that funding goes, and they would be the ones that award the contract. And so we're saying maybe it's just a community-based organization who runs this office, but this commission, who is comprised of people with lived experience in care, current and former foster youth, along with professionals, would be kind of responsible for driving where that funding goes. So we kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that that second one is like a bigger lift. And that's what we've heard from a lot of people, from a lot of legislators that we've talked to, is like, I don't know if you're going to get that done in House Bill 110, but I am still, and we are all still very committed to making sure that it's outside of that program operation. So there's another amendment that we're really hoping will still get into the budget. So, and that's where our kind of grassroots advocacy comes in, right? So we're over here, we're all the way at the end of the process at number 7. And if you guys haven't, followed the budget process, it happens every 2 years. The bill was proposed way back in March. And here's the thing, it has to pass because we have to be able to spend the money. Right. So it's going to pass before the end of June. But the question is, are we going to have that amendment added back into or added into the bill? And we are going to know 1 week from today is what we've been hearing through the grapevine, is that the Senate is going to finalize. And I have heard that there are 2,000 amendments that people have pitched through the budget process. So, what we would love to see is that real grassroots advocacy where you call and write and tag in social media. We're really focused on the Senate Finance Committee, and I've got a list of all those senators. And I have like a toolkit, kind of like a Google folder that has some like sample posts. We've got the testimony recorded from when all of the youth had done their testimony. So we have some actual video footage that can really, I think, is really compelling. Because like I said, when you hear the stories, I just feel so grateful and privileged to like been in this work with some of these young people who have experienced exactly what we're trying to prevent, which is that they've gone to their caseworker and their caseworker has kind of swept their problem under the rug, either because they're just overwhelmed or because, they have some affinity with this particular foster parent and they can't believe that it's possibly happening. There's any number, maybe this foster kid, maybe the person who's in foster care is unsympathetic for whatever reason. They've gotten on the bad side of the caseworker. And so they're just not believed. And so those are the kinds of things that's like, if they can't report it up to their caseworker, then who do they have left? What's another option for them? And that's what this youth ombudsman would do. It's to be this alternative person. Their job is to listen. Their job is to investigate and take their concerns seriously. Because what we've heard over and over and over again is that when a youth is in care, whether it's in a congregate care facility, a foster care placement, where, whatever it is, they're not listened to. Their concerns are not taken seriously. And so this ombudsman would be, that's their job. Their job is to take this young person seriously. And that's what we're really hoping will happen in the next, in House Bill 110. So Thank you so much for listening to our the work that we've been doing. I so appreciate it, and I did want to give you guys a chance to ask any questions. And I am going to post in the chat a link to our. If I can figure out how to do this with my screen share. We created a Google folder, like I said, and it has a lot of different things included. So there's a file called sample social media posts. There's a legislator contact list. So I have it filtered so that you can only see the Senate finance members, and I put their Twitter tags, their Twitter IDs in there. I put a template letter in there too. So if you wanted to like just send an email to one of those legislators, and the thing is, you don't ever, I have never actually had an email address to the legislator themselves. I'm sure some people have those, but I just have their aides. So every legislator has an aide, and their aide is kind of, that's their job, is to make sure that the legislator hears from their constituents. So the template letter is something that you could send to the aide, and it will get passed along. And then there's also an issue brief in there that kind of has that like one pager, quick snapshot that if you ever want, if anybody ever asks, oh, I'd like to hear more about that, it's kind of an easy thing to send along. So with that, I want to stop and see if anybody had any questions.
Should I introduce myself, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. My name is Joy Paget. I have no idea how anybody ever got my name to invite me to this, but I am currently, and have been for 12 years, a guardian ad litem. And if you don't know what that means that I'm appointed by the judge in the court to do investigations, exploration about kids that have been abused or neglected and are in foster care. So, I mean, this is just odd that, like I said, that this invitation was made. An ombudsman is so needed. It just is unbelievable. I have seen kids put in horrible situations with foster parents. Not all. I don't want to condemn the foster parent population out there, who many of them, you know, they're doing this through their heart. And that's a wonderful thing. But I also have seen kids that have been abused and neglected, and their situation getting much worse. My concern, and I would be glad to help you in any way that you think I might be helpful, because this message needs to be told. I'm a former member of the Ohio House, and I'm a former member of the Ohio Senate. So the information that you gave was very, very good. I just, and again, I believe that you can make things work out. Kids are so fearful of retribution. And so often they will say to me, I can't tell you this, because if you deal with this with my foster parent, or sometimes with my caseworker, I get in trouble. So it's just something to be aware of. I don't know how we can soften that. So I'll stop talking, but I don't know, God must have interceded and sent me this invitation, because the work you are doing is so important, and it can make a lot of difference to a lot of kids going forward.
Thank you so much, Joy. That was very powerful, and it's so true. So thank you for all the work that you continue to do as well. We need more people like you. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Oh, guardian ad litems can be your friend. I don't think that there is an association of independent guardians ad litems, but I'm trying to think of the group of guardian ad litems that serve as volunteers, and they do a really good job too. But guardian ad litems look at these cases from a different perspective, and it usually is as an advocate.
Yeah, you gave me chills, Joy. Thank you so much for speaking out. So yeah, I actually, and I'll kind of put on a different hat here. So I am a gal too. I'm a CASA, so the court appointed
That's what I was
special.
trying, yeah,
Yeah.
CASA, yes.
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more specifically about foster care, I would highly recommend exploring the Franklin County CASA, CASA. It is intense, but if this is something that you're really committed to learning more about, that's a really good avenue because it is very organized. Um, Yeah, and it's really interesting that you should say that, because one of our young people, Caden Bearfield, testified about this idea of like needing to address this idea of the fear of retribution. And that's why when we talk about the design of this being informed by current and former foster youth, that's exactly the kind of thing that someone with lived experience understands at a really intimate level, that a professional who isn't going to get that dynamic. And so when we've been advocating for this, we continue to say that whoever is driving this needs to have lived experience. And so thank you so much for bringing that up. And that's something that we'll continue to highlight as we're talking about it through the implementation process. Any other questions, comments? I'd love to hear other people's, kind of what your engagement has been, either in this or other advocacy campaigns.
I have a quick question for you, for either Kimberly or for Jay, just based on the activities that we do at the Junior League. And I've listened over this past year just for some different presentations and the different levels of how we can get involved. And I always wonder, is our time better spent at more of that framework or the systems change level than raising money so we can give backpacks and duffel bags? I mean, should we be working more on why this is happening instead of reacting to what has happened? Is there, and I know there's a lot of work to be done there, but we have so many members that are so passionate that really want to get into policy and want to get into the root of what is going wrong instead of reacting to how do we support the person who is being affected by what is going wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Did you want to say something, Kim?
You go ahead.
Okay. I believe in just being active in both parts, responding to what's being done, but also, standing before people and speaking about, what needs to change. I believe it's one shouldn't be more than the other, because how can I say it? One shouldn't be more than the other, or just focusing on policy. Like, I feel like when people come together and realize, or just create a space, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do. It balances it out. Because of course, advocating and creating, better outcomes is important. But needs still have to be met in the process. So I feel like it's one and the same mostly. One can't be done without the other kind of thing. And with Action Ohio, we've been we're so focused on creating, better outcomes, that I feel like more people need to know more about Action Ohio and how Action Ohio can, really show others who want to get involved, how to get involved, what this looks like, and creating space for people to attend and come together and do it. Because a lot of times people feel like they're on their own, oh, I need to create this. And this, this is why, Kim created a template so people don't feel like it's overwhelming. But I feel like if we just keep speaking more about why policy change is important, it won't feel like it's not done or it's not being done, because it is. But so that's just my input. Is just I feel like it's both the same. They both need the same amount of time, because our children are being affected greatly. So it's just we can't just focus on just the policy change. We need to, for instance, some programs, in regards to, independent living. I work with a 18-year-old now, and she has twins. She's pregnant with twins, and the program that she's in, it didn't prepare her for, aging out of a residential facility. So it's like, now here I am, she's reaching out to me and I'm picking up this also still while trying to, figure out how can we continue speaking about the Youth Ombudsman's office. So it's like, we have this going on and this going on. So yeah, I hope that answered. And Kim, you can say more.
Yeah, I think from somebody who I kind of really identify with this idea of being an ally. And so I feel like the best way to become an ally is to get to know people who are impacted. And so that's kind of, for me, that's where the direct service comes in. So I think when I think about getting involved with something, I don't think about it so much as like just writing a check, because I want to have that interaction. Because I think there's a lot of systems level work that you can do, and kind of the framework change and those kinds of things are all kind of they're so kind of interconnected for me, so that when I'm doing direct service, so one of the ways that I've got plugged into this was getting involved with the Scholar Network, which is a group on Columbus State's campus that it's just kind of like a support network for former foster youth who are now going through college. And, so I kind of helped create like some cooking classes, and we put together like care packages and things like that. So it's very like helpful. But while I'm doing that, I'm kind of embodying these ideas of like listening and trying to really understand kind of from the perspective of the people. These are just people, right? Like, I think sometimes when we're in this space, we kind of like, oh, we need to help them. But I think when you get into a situation where you can really be in community with people, you understand that they're not other. It's just, we're all part of the same community. And I think that's like one way to kind of bridge that gap. I love that, bridging the gap kind of idea that you guys are putting forth. But yeah, I would say both and they have to complement one another.
And I would like to share another example, just to like, I don't want it to always feel like, policy is the only way, or like, just is the only way you can advocate, or, you can create the space of, advocacy work. So with Ellie, like we have a table of awareness. So if and you've been to events, you'll see like vendor tables and people, selling things. Well, with our table, we have this, and it's on our website. I'm sorry. So if you want to see it on there, it's there. But we have this table of awareness where we have this board, and it literally focuses on all 5 senses. So not only is it this board, but people are able to write on like little cards, words of affirmation, and stick them into a slot. We're able to, give candy. We're able to talk about, our bags, our mission duffel bags. We're able to talk about just raising awareness on the needs. And this is what's going on in the community. It's been times where we've been paid to come to events and just be a table there, because they're like, oh, I didn't know foster care was real. I didn't know this was going on. And this was before COVID. So this was 2019. People are like, what? There's such thing as foster care. So, that's just another way to just advocate and just bring awareness to any situation that's going on. Cause again, the system it's so big in this, this is what's happening, sex trafficking, this is what's happening, their needs aren't being met, this is what's happening, abuse, this is what's happening, whatever, so it's just like taking this time to just always be, just always just creating a space, we're advocating, with the Columbus Foundation. Every year they host the Big Table. So in 2019, we were able to host the Big Foster Table. It was through the Columbus Foundation. So we were able to create this space at the Worthington Library for people to come and hear about foster care and how they can get involved, because people who know about foster care, they'll think like, oh, I can't do anything because I don't really want to foster, I'm not ready. But it's like, no, there's other things you can do. There's organizations, you know, you can partner with, and there's Ellie. So yeah, so that's that, you know, that's another way to just, you know, advocate and create that spaces, you know, just again, partnering, having that information and resources available. So.
Thank you. But that was really helpful because I think so many times we focus on we need to raise money to be able to provide something and not taking the time to, we need to get better educated. We need that relationship more.
Yeah.
And I know Veronica and Shauna and their teams have been working so hard on this, and this has just been so wonderful. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And people get so tired of just always thinking like, I have to give money, I have to give money, because we can't really show, like, I know for Ellie, we can't show, you know, our children's faces, you know, if we're serving a child, we can't show their faces on social media, like, this is where your money went to. So they're like, what are other ways I can get involved? You know, we partner with the church. I know for Foster Care Awareness Month, I told everyone, like, you know, I don't want to post anything about getting donations. You know, if people hear by word of mouth, that's fine, but I don't really want to receive, you know, monetary donations during this month, because how heavy a certain, you know, how heavy an event that just happened with Ma'Khia Bryant. I'm just like, I don't want to do that for Foster Care Awareness Month. I want to really actually raise awareness and pray, you know. So on our social media, we've been having like different highlights on this is how you can pray for, you know, this specific group of, you know, people who are within the child welfare system. So like our police officers, like our social workers, and, you know, just professionals and advocate, you know, people who are advocating, because, and it's gotten a lot of like attention, or like more, people have been more active, like, you know what, I can do this, you know. So thank you for asking that question. Sorry, I'm just like so passionate about it. So,
thank you, Jay. Would you mind putting Ellison's website in the chat for us? That would be great. Thank you.
of course.
And I like writing checks too. Don't get me wrong. It's both. It's, you know, when you're in a position of privilege, you have access to power, you have access to resources. You know, there's so much that goes into it. So it's all, you know, everything that you can do. Writing a check, I didn't mean to diminish that. That's definitely important too.
I don't know if the junior league has seminars or programs or whatever, but what I have found that I've done a few times is just sit down and explain to people what our kids go through, because we so often judge others by our own experiences. So, you know, maybe my child might be sitting next to a foster child who's never experienced, I don't know, going shopping and getting 3 outfits on the same day. I'll just pick that as something, or even having certain kinds of food. And they're always like so surprised at what some of our kids who are resilient beyond belief quite often. But I think that trying to bring knowledge maybe to your membership of what it is to take in a foster child, or what it is that foster children do not experience from the time they're tiny tots, you know, right up on through, that makes them who they are. Because it really is an area in which I think the general population really don't understand the challenges that foster kids face.
Yeah. I agree. I know when I worked at an agency, a lot of the people didn't know that I had lived experience in foster care. So when I was working with, I was in a residential facility, and I was working with teen girls about 14, probably 13 to 17. And for some reason, anytime something happened, I knew because of experience and because of, life experience and just having the compassion, I knew how to respond. Instead of responding as a worker or as a youth leader, I responded as, I've been there, I understand you. So when things would happen, a lot of the girls would gravitate towards me, not knowing that I had lived experience, but seeing how another person reacted to, what they were going through. I feel like it just made, it made their anger or their resentment towards the system or just what they're going through, it just made it greater. So they would either explode, they would either, cut, or just try to take it out on the next girl in the unit or in the pod or whatever, because it felt like a jail. So they were just like Miss J, I love to journal. So Miss J, can we have a Miss J session? So I would create a journal topic in their journal. They would have to write, from that journal topic. I would read it, and then I would write an affirmation at the bottom of their journal. And when I tell you, like, there's even been times I just would write things on the board that would affirm them and that would encourage them to just, to be successful even in this place that they're in, so that this is not your final, this is not the final place you're going to be at, that you can be something so much bigger than this. Because they were just always in this place, like I would hear workers say, this is why your parent don't want you, you're dirty. Or we would be in a school building for my whole shift, and this school building is literally just the hallway because all the doors are locked besides one, and they're drinking water out of the faucet or waiting to get in the shower that's all the way on the other end. So it was just kind of like, I would sit there and I would just be like, what did you expect when you come here? And a lot of them would say, I thought it was going to be more professional. I thought I was going to get more help, but it's just like any other place that I've been at. And I'm like, oh God, what's going on? So I honestly, I like what you said, Joy, just being able to just create that space on how can we get to a place of, yeah, we may not experience what they experience, but I can show compassion. I can extend grace for where you're at and, the things that you experienced. So.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, hearing all of you speak now, that something that we've not been able to do during, all this COVID stuff is really interact with a lot of youth who have lived experience in the foster care system. And I think being able to do some activities and events where we're interacting with youth who have lived in that system before will help inspire some more interest in advocacy. And some of our members who are more nervous about participating in a hearing or writing a letter, once you meet someone who has had that experience and is willing to share that with you, you can't unlearn that, you can't unhear that, and I feel like people are more willing to feel like they are, standing with others when they get to know people. So I'm really hoping we can do more of that in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It's really needed. I know a lot of people, like a lot of our current or former foster youth, sometimes are afraid to share their testimony. So just being able to create a space on how can we help you share your story, instead of always having, us, yes, as a, I'm a current, I'm a former foster youth, but I'm also, I'm in the community. A lot of our, current youth or former, they're just like, I don't know what to say, or they've always had this in their mind that they're not good enough to share their story because, on paper, they may be like 24, but they have an 8th grade level education, or, so it's just like it's more of a, I can't share, I don't know how. So I feel like it would be really, really good to create a space in helping, those with lived experience and who are still experiencing. Look, we want to help you find your voice. We want to help you find your voice so that, you can share and create that change too. So that's really good.
Yeah,
I have oh, sorry, go ahead, Kim.
Well, I was just going to mention, so before the pandemic, this feels like ages and ages ago, I had kind of started this idea of cooking workshops. And so it's just a cool opportunity to engage with other people around food and, have that connection like you're talking about, and stories can kind of flow and build relationships. So we had a couple, we were able to do one for actual, youth who are actually in foster care currently through their independent living classes. And we did a couple with the Scholar Network. So yeah, I think like eventually, I think the world will return to normal. But I think there are definitely opportunities. I think those can build kind of mentoring relationships. I think some problems that we have is that oftentimes our networking, like the ways that we find employment is so confined to who we know. And so when you kind of give people interactions with other professionals, it can really link them in a way that they may not have had access to before. So yeah, I see so much potential for those kinds, like building those kinds of relationships.
Absolutely, I agree, Kim. I have a question that's kind of not related. Well, it's related, but we have been talking a lot about, I've heard foster youth, I've heard youth in foster care, I've heard youth with lived experience in foster care. Is there a way, that everyone's obviously gonna be different, but is there a preference in the way that we refer to youth who have had a lived experience? Do people prefer that person first kind of language? Is there any thought on that or any idea?
Sorry, I'm getting this off mute. So I know for me, I never really I don't know, because I'm so used to people just saying things. I've grown to just have this kind of like thick skin, like, you know what? Yeah. But in a lot, the language, it's more when we introduce ourselves, we say, I am a, former foster youth. When we're introducing someone else who is in the system, it's, I am a current, foster youth. But if we're speaking like overall, it's just current informer current informer. I think the most it's really been that's really gotten people off is how we say we're a community. And it's so crazy because having this access to, so let me just say, I didn't find out that I was in foster care until 2019. It was 2 weeks before my first event. And I was just experiencing a lot of triggers that felt just really familiar. So I asked my dad, what happened to me and my twin brother when we were younger. And he let us know. And I'm like, oh my God. All right. So boom. So getting connected with Action Ohio and really becoming family to so many of, our former foster youth. It's we're this community, we're our own community. We stick up for one another. We check on, one another. We invite each other to events because we know, what it feels like as just, being on the outside. So we say, this is our, foster care community, or our community of foster, youth, or, community of current foster youth. So it's literally I don't see that we take offense to how it says, but this is just something, how it just flows, I guess.
Okay, thank you. No, that's good to know.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing some kind of formal testimony, I do like the person first because it helps, when we talk about the framework, right? We're trying to shift the narrative around, these are just people, right? They're not foster kids. They're youth who have been affected by foster care, youth who have lived experience with foster care. So any of those I think would work. But yeah, I think when you're in casual conversation, don't feel like you have to be I'm not super great about remembering those, language cues in person either. So.
I know it's just oh, you're a kid, who was in foster care, or, you're a foster kid. It's come on now, for real. Or it's more so like also like the action of like how you treat us and those who are currently in care. So I know a lot of people are just like, when we share our stories, it's treating us like we're so, fragile, or, and it's like, come on, I'm just like you. Like, this is just, something I went through. So, and I'm saying that because, once I shared my story of the things and the trauma that I remembered at such a young age, people begin to look at me as like, we always got to invite Jay to an event. And this is like outside of, our community of current and former foster youth. People just like, we always got to invite Jay, or, we always got to check up on Jay, see if she's okay. And da-da-da. And it's like, I should have never said anything. So.
Does anyone else have any additional questions? And with that, I just want to thank you, Jay and Kim, so much for your time and the information that you presented. It was amazing and it was very insightful. And we look forward. I speak for myself. I hope that we continue to get to work together as part of the league, and continue fostering and building this relationship so we can continue to create the change that we want to see.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to work with your organization, and I know you guys are I just feel like I have so much like respect for the people in this organization. Like, you're going to be these like key leaders in the community, so having the opportunity to plant these seeds and on behalf of foster youth who have lived experience with foster care. See, it doesn't just roll off the tongue, does it? But yes, thank you for listening to us and taking our passions to heart.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. We will definitely be reaching out.
I have a quick question. Are the slides going to be made available, Veronica?
Yes, I can do that. Definitely.
And the webinar was recorded as well, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, everyone have a great evening. And again, thank you so much.